Alright, it's the final part. Just 6 more games for this Madvent season, and we're done. But for now, all we can do is dive in. Very fun, very campy, very poorly optimized. You really have no idea what you're in for when you read the title Blood Kink in the roster lineup. I can say I didn't expect something so cheeky. Blood Kink sees you playing Jack, some guy with pink hair participating in the titular Blood Kink arena, where you have to shoot saws, punch, slide, and hook your way through 31 rounds. I got to the first boss before I started feeling too weak to really handle the enemies. I noticed the things on the walls with words above them, but it was unclear how they functioned. At first I was rubbing up against them, pushing buttons, thinking maybe the meter in the top left corner was the blood I was collecting for kills, not just a combo meter. Then I thought maybe I'm supposed to push dudes in there, but despite the blades spinning, even when I finally managed to get them in, it didn't grind them up. It was by pure accident, as I was fighting near one, that I noticed the vial had gone up, but it took me even longer to figure out that it was the loose body parts that were feeding the machine. Needing to feed the machine corpses of your enemies for upgrades is a cool idea. I just wish the game would have told me directly this was how they worked. Would have saved me like 20 minutes probably. After learning I could have been getting stronger the whole time, I reset the game, this time with the goal to grind up. Suddenly the game becomes fun once my buzzsaws aren't taking like 5 ever to reload. But even with the upgrades, health is tough to come by, and I die. Thankfully, the game has an option to reset at the last round you were on. Unfortunately, like day 9, the game resets your upgrades when you die. It's a huge blemish. It's wild to me that we got 2 upgrade games that made this mistake. So while you can choose to continue from the round you were on, it's not really a feasible option. Unless you partake in the cheating option. The game has 2 extra settings that become available on death, one for regenerating health and one that outright makes you invincible. I tried the regen on my first death, since I didn't know how to heal at the moment. And it helped a lot. It got me really far in, but after another death from what felt like an insta-kill attack, I didn't really want to start all over again just to have a chance of moving forward, so I put on invulnerability. Just in time too, because about halfway through the game, suddenly the arena becomes clogged with body parts and the frames begin to dip, and it just gets worse and worse until the game is basically unplayable without infinite health. Again, I'm pretty certain the slowdown is caused by the sheer amount of body parts. Even though the dev said they put them on a 4-minute timer, apparently you're chopping up so many of them that 4 minutes just wasn't fast enough. So I tried my best to clean up the viscera into the grinders just to get some breathing room, but the physics engine makes it hard to hit straight, and a lot of the body parts get pushed into the corners of the stage where they become stuck. Luckily you can also pick up items with your hook. Though the aim is a little off, you gotta use the thing below the reticle to aim, not the reticle itself. Unfortunately, the frame rate got so bad at one point I could no longer hook. So once I lost that, I was just living on a prayer that the game wouldn't crash on me. I'm grateful I did manage to get to the end. While playing, there are a set of announcers talking through the whole thing. The performances are great. They mostly make crude jokes, throw a lot at the wall, and most of it doesn't stick, but the game did get me good twice. It's a very rare feat for a game to have me laughing aloud while I'm playing. A small thing that was annoying was all of the cutaways to what felt like ads. I didn't realize at first that they played when you got an upgrade. They're cute, but if you get a bunch of upgrades back to back, the cutaways really break the flow state you had in the arena. Every 7 rounds there's a boss fight, and at the end, most of the boss fights have you do a minigame in order to finish them off. While one minigame did contain a laugh, overall, I don't think the minigames themselves added to the experience. The game is rough around the edges. There's a ton of things they could do to polish this experience up and make it even better, but I like it as it is. It's got moxie. I was looking up the dev's previous works and, oh shit, it's the Will of Beasts dev. Everything makes sense now. I remember that game also having humorous writing coupled with excellent vocal performances. It just seems like that's what the world's cutest gamers' strong suits are. So, you know, I guess I'm still looking forward to that when that becomes more of a full game, or whatever they make next. From what little digging I did, this appears to be Best Lizard's very first game they ever made. Not first released, because they waited until Madvent came out to release this one, but looking at their socials you can see that they had been developing it before everything else. So how'd it come out? Well, it's an RNG maze. Find the exit 8 times to beat the game. The RNG is a little whack. I had 2 runs ended because I ended up trapped on floors with no exits. Thankfully those bad maps usually happen early in runs and not say like 7 mazes deep. Won't fault them for trying. I remember trying to do procedural maps for my first game, but struggled with that sort of consistency to make sure there was always an exit every time. The volumetric lights are neat. I am glad that you can usually see the exit from a distance because of all the fog around it, though the big bad of the sewers also has a red light over their head, so you have to be careful if the red light is exit or death. The big bad Wendigo isn't actually all that bad to deal with. He works well enough, big stompy feet so you hear them, clear line of sight, noise when angry, kind of easy to cheese if he crashes into you. Thankfully one hit doesn't reset your entire run. There's also these death ghosts who are painfully slow, but I wagered they're a one-hit kill if they bump into you accidentally to compensate for their slowness. And there was one map where I felt I was absolutely swarmed by these guys. Which leads us to the final monster, the white crawlers, who are probably the toughest to suss out where they are based on sound. And they're really fast, so outrunning them doesn't feel like an option. You just have to hope you have a Swiss cheese map to break their line of sight real fast. The game gives you a spray can to mark where you've been. If you don't have a good sense of space, it's pretty easy to go in circles. Mine is pretty okay though, so I only use it on accident. Sucks if you die, you have to reset the entire game and have to go through all 8 rounds again. How bad your 8 rounds will be really depends on the RNG. Sometimes you spawn right next to the exit, sometimes there just is no exit. The reward for completing the game is a text box basically saying the tunnels were alive the whole time, and you know, like, it's not much of a reward. At the end of the day, this feels like a quintessential dev's first game. I hope they learn a lot from the experience of making this and continue to grow. An interesting dialogue-heavy interrogation game, good sense of world throughout this brief interaction. I'm a little less fond of how the facts of the story change depending on your answers. You might be a human named Riley, you might be an android named Winston, you might be part of a terrorist organization, you might not, it just depends on your answers. Only one instance does the game explicitly tell you if the info you're about to give is a truth or a lie, and it's whether or not you live across the street from the incident. What's wild is it doesn't really seem to matter if you do or don't. All lying grants you is some extra weighting in the verification section, and alternate dialogue options of what you saw. But every branch of dialogue seems to funnel into 3 endings. You are released from custody, you are taken to the torture chamber, you piss off the detective and get shot on sight. Maybe there's more hiding underneath. It would be neat if there was a path where you can convince the detective that they're an android or something to that effect, but after nearly 10 runs through this dialogue tree, the end usually ended up shaking out to be one of those 3 things. Details could change, like you could be released from custody because they don't think you're suspicious, or because they don't suspect you of being a part of this major crime, and if their plate wasn't so full to figure that out, they'd take you into the torture chamber. All in all, the game is a good example of how engaging a simple dialogue tree can be. I would have preferred to have known my factual place in the story and then navigate the interrogation from there, but I think there is merit in making the player a collaborator in the facts of the story on the fly. A day to explore the launcher environment a little closer up than you can in the launcher, or at least in theory. Unfortunately, instead of making their own custom flight controller, it seems they tried to modify Cinemachine, or the fancy camera mover the launcher uses, which unfortunately creates this unwieldy experience where it's super difficult to actually fly around and look at things. They also use the HPSX render pipeline, which the launcher also uses with the same settings, and while it does give fly mode the exact same vibe, it does mean that everything's a bit blurry. While I usually love getting to explore a location at my own pace and get a good look at the model work everyone did, the controls make the simple act of looking at something a small nightmare, and the post-processing means that the image is just as blurry as the launcher, obfuscating the details. It's a shame too, because the Madvent 5 team really put a lot of love and detail into the map they made. Like, it's a great location, it's just the game they built to let you appreciate that doesn't. The fact that there's no Gifty or SD Kruger hanging around is a crime, and also you can't go high enough to reach the top of the radio tower, and that seems silly. I'd highly recommend the Madvent 5 team just rip out that camera system and replace it with something wholesale, so that future Madvent generations can enjoy this better. This one was really pleasant. You're tasked with finding 6 crystals across 6 different worlds, using this cube device thing to transport you to each. The one the game defaults to is Blue, the water world, and I think it's probably the hardest world to explore. I guess it's like the most maze-like of them all, but once I found the stairs, it was a snap. The rest of them have you walk down basically glorified hallways, enjoying the atmosphere before stumbling across its crystal. One room, the crystal's just hanging out in the open. Green is the second toughest, being a hedge maze. Thankfully, it's a regular maze, and it's easier to parse than whatever's going on in the water world. Once you collect them all, you return to the starting world, the doors unlock, fade to white. Again, it's simple but nice. Each location did enough to feel unique but cohesive. like we're exploring a lost world of abandoned architecture of a society long since past. I do feel the dense fog in each area kind of led to a samey feeling. Maybe if the distance fog like expanded and contracted more noticeably, depending on the location, or if not disappeared outright with one or two of the maps. Still, it's kind of a nitpick. The game is simply walking around and taking it in, and that's all a Madvent gift really needs to be. It's a solid entry. Reminds me of the last Flynn game I played, Altered Stasis, a game from the Haunted PS1 Summer Growth Jam, which I was working on a video for, but ended up scrapping it due to a bunch of consecutive life things making working on that difficult. To my understanding, that's sort of what happened to Flynn here, tragedy after tragedy keeping them from giving this game the care they intended, but at least they managed to get their game out despite those challenges. Both Winter's Medical Trip and Altered Stasis seem to have a lot going on leading up to the snippet we see that we'll probably never learn about. Our main protagonists are two siblings. One of the siblings turns into a monster at the end before cutting off very suddenly. It's very jarring when this happens after so little time. They're both like 4 or 5 screens apiece. Still, the art is very stylish. I really appreciate how they have dynamic camera angles for this 2D game and all of the drawing they have to do to make that happen. And the story gives you enough to chew on for the brief bite that it is. I understand why someone might walk away from this disappointed. I too wish there were more, but again, I'm glad they managed to make what they did. I'd always rather have something imperfect than nothing at all. Putting together a Madvent takes an awful lot of effort, not just on the launcher end, but from every developer who spent time making something special for this season. Even if every game didn't really drive with me 100%, I really do appreciate all of the work that they put in, and I'm glad I got to see Madvent continue after my tenure. No clue if the team who made Madvent 5 planned to keep going or if this was just a one and done. Still, I'm less worried about the future of Madvent. Even if it's not a yearly thing anymore, Madvent seems to be special to a lot of people, and it just takes one of them to fire up the community for another season. So whether it's next year or a few down the line, I'll see you for this next Mad event. Until then, consider subscribing. I'm going to try and do more small videos like this, talking about stuff that speaks to me over the next year. It's kind of my New Year's resolution, at least one video a month. Though you might catch me posting about games over on the HPS1 Curator group first. Steam's winter sale is upon us, and Vladimere Lhore is 40% off. If you haven't already, that's 14 games, plus museum, all chock full of commentary, just for $11. And for those of you that already picked it up, thank you so much. It means a lot. So I guess with all that, Merry Christmas. I hope you enjoy your holidays. Have a happy new year. I'll see you then.